This podcast will help protect democracy. Welcome to Not Just Any Book Club's episode on Starship Troopers. I'm Justin.
I'm Pierce. We watched the movie Starship Troopers, the film,
Yeah, which
the good
funnily
version.
funnily enough, I did read the book. Christ knows what episodes that was. But I think I've emphatically said many times before, and I don't know if I've made this very apparent, but I really hated the book. I very much said that the book is the worst thing I've ever read, willingly cover to cover. So if anyone knows what episode that is, you'll have fun listening to that. Even though Pierce and Luke, I think, was on that episode, and we both were like, "Yeah, this is satire." I'm like, I'm not sure about that because I didn't look into this guy's history, the author's history, but perhaps they'd be surprised to know that he was almost 100% serious while writing this book. So, hooray for that! Thankfully, this movie takes the piss out of it completely. Thankfully, in loving satire and bug guts and glory and all that stuff. So,
Yep, it's wonderful, and I also don't really know how people miss it. Lots of people miss the fact that this movie is satire. Seemingly on both sides of it, people who take it seriously and hate it for that, and people who take it seriously and are like, "Oh yeah, so sick, dude. I love people. Death to bugs, you know."
yeah. Mm, um, yeah. I, I got that it was satire. And I think it's very apparent from the first scene where they have that very 90s opening, because this was in 97. I keep on forgetting when the internet kind of looked like that, where it's like, do you want to know more? Do you want to know more? Where it's like kind of treating the news like coming attractions, and they're just shoving propaganda in their faces. I don't know how anyone can miss the very tongue-in-cheek tone right there. I mean, maybe.
Also, the I mean, like, even if you miss that, the one of the very first things that happens in that intro is they're like, "Oh, I'm doing my part," and then it cuts to a child in a soldier getup, like, "I'm doing my part."
Yeah. Which, okay, that those two scenes, I'm doing my part and that little child gif, those were the most I've seen of the movie because those are very popular gifs or gifs on
Mm.
the internet. And really, that's all I knew about the movie, besides it being based on this. But yeah, it wears its satire on its sleeve. It's not like that high octane satire all the way throughout, but it is pretty apparent as that it's not endorsing that the government that society falls under in this 23rd century or 21st,
Mm-hmm.
whatever
23rd.
it is, 23rd, because it gets wild. And the book was written by Robert A. Heinlein, who I still refuse to do much research on this guy because he's pretty problematic. But he did this book kind of in response to the fact that he and Isaac Asimov, fun fact, were both working together as engineers, and A. Heinlein was kind of salty that they ended nuclear testing, which Eisenhower agreed because you didn't want to test the atomic bomb because they knew what the Manhattan Project was like, and they didn't want to test it anymore. But he was so angry at the fact that they had the audacity to refuse that. He said, unquote, that even if it was 100 times more deadly, it would be better than to be under communist enslavement. So, you know where his ideals were at. He had very wild views that range from fascist to extremely libertarian. He was very inconsistent. It was very apparent in his books, which are were very ideological. He was very into weird kinky stuff, but there was some earnest attempt to show some ideals that he wanted to strive for. And the one good thing I could say about this man was that he was not a racist, and he tried not to be a sexist. He may have slipped and fell in some of the portrayals of his books, but there was an attempt. But um, consistently, that he is not a racist. Because in the future, of where all he writes his books, it shows there's some racial equality. Even
Yeah.
in the main character, um, Johnny Rico, he's white in the movie, so that's a knock against the movie. But in the book,
Well, he's Argentinian, which I thought was interesting.
yeah,
Because Argentinians are like
don't look like
from
that
from
character.
what I understand. No, they're white.
Oh
They're
yeah.
pretty white. From what I understand, they tend to be kind of there. There's like a good portion
Oh,
of like racist
huh.
white Argentinians, which I think is interesting given the like kind of anti-fascist satire of the movie.
I don't know if that was actually
I don't know if that
intentional.
was purposeful, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
this I have no idea, but I think it's an interesting aspect.
yeah. But um, this is kind of the representation I don't want. But the main character in the book was Filipino. Uh, and they speak Tagalog, and his entire family is Filipino. So I'm like, yo, I think it was kind of revealed at the end because I don't remember. I knew that he was Filipino. I was kind of waiting for that to drop in the book. It was at the end of the book. So I was like, oh, that was really neat. Kind of wish it was a better book, but I'll take the
Yeah.
representation I can have.
As far as the sexism goes, I thought it was interesting that there's no like there doesn't seem to be any kind of restrictions on women in this military
Mhm.
organization. However, I did notice that like all of the leaders were men. Like 100% of the leadership male.
Okay, that is something I didn't notice that way, but
Yeah.
yeah, that is true.
There's some strong
Uh,
women, but none of them are in leadership positions.
huh. Um. Well, we can do a very broad overview. Because I have my take on this movie, but and what it's meant to say. I may have missed some of the satire of it, even though going into it knowing that it was a satire. But we shall just do a quick summary. So it's the 23rd century. Humans have evolved. It's the future. The government is fascist. Johnny Rico is in the classroom, and he just he's a bit of a bum. He does. I think he scores like 23% on his math test. It doesn't matter. Uh,
The government specifically is like a military, like it's completely like
jingoistic. Yeah.
militarized. Yeah, like you. This is kind of an important plot point from the very beginning. You have to like do some kind of federal service to get citizenship, and for most people, that means joining the military.
Yeah. Which, fun fact, that is actually one of the few scenes that were like lifted verbatim from the book. Well, I mean, at least the teacher's speech.
The classroom scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I checked out of the book because Verhoeven said when he was reading the book, he kind of stopped after the two chapters. I kind of continued after chapter three. I had more of a curiosity because I'm like, no way, this is real. No way. Kept on flipping through. I'm like, it is real. Um, and it just kept on getting worse. Anyways, so Johnny Rico, he lives in a future where humans have kind of evolved to be super athletic, and some of them are psychic, some of them aren't. Uh, that's besides the point. He's a high schooler. He joins the infantrymen to after graduation at the behest of his parents to join and remain close with his girlfriend. His girlfriend kind of breaks up with him before that. While his friend Carl joins military intelligence, he's the one with psychic powers, and Dizzy, his friend, but not really, but maybe friend, deliberately transfers into Rico's squad. While at boot camp, he impresses the drill sergeant Zim, and he earns a promotion. And he immediately screws that up because while leading, he kills a squad member on accident. Gets punished, and he is about to quit, but then quickly reenlists after his family is killed by a mysterious meteor that happens. And he gets inspired to join
It
once again.
it kills most of the people in Buenos Aires.
Also
Which at
very
this
important.
point I believe in the movie is like hundreds of like over 100 million people in the like
Yeah.
23rd century. Also, he earns the promotion off the back of Dizzy's plan in a training exercise.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that
he's
is
like
true.
they're like being shot at in the training exercise. He's like he doesn't know what to do, and she tells him like a play from football or something. There or
Oh,
like
yeah.
futuristic
To
football, and he's like,
just
"Oh yeah, of
where everyone
course." and then he
where
pulls
everyone
it
does
off.
backflips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, they decide they have to go on this planet and or an asteroid. No, it's a planet because the asteroid killed everyone in Buenos Aires. So they go on a planet, and it backfires because they don't really have a plan. They just go, "All right, let's go shoot stuff," because they shoot very blindly, and it's just a lot of his fellow soldiers die and very gruesome attacks. And Rico is badly wounded. You think he's about to die, but then he miraculously recovers, and this like pod thing.
Vat
There's a lot of
of
liquid.
goo.
Vat
Yeah.
of yeah. So after that, he recovers. He's ready to fight again. And there's this love stuff between Disney and all that stuff, but who cares about that? Disney's wounded. Well, this is all happening. I think his high school teacher comes in and starts leading the squad. They get along, and as they're fighting, the high school person dies, and then Dizzy is then wounded. Oh, yeah, and then Rico mercy kills his high school teacher that was probably the most human, one of the more human characters in the movie. And then once they barely survive that, it's revealed that Carl, who is dressed suspiciously like a Nazi, kind of set them up, and he's like, "Yeah, we just had to see what was going on there," and he said, "Yeah, I'm not really sorry, so let's do this
He
again."
wants to confirm the existence of a
A
smart
brain
bug.
bug. Yeah, the
Brain
brain
bug.
bug. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they just go on the same planet or a different planet, anyways, and basically hijinks ensue. They go in a cave. Carmen and Xander are captured by the brain bug, which kills Xander in probably the most gruesome moment of the film. And Johnny Rico commands his infantry to go ahead without him as he goes almost lone wolf. He brings a couple people with him, disobeying it in a mission, and decides to save Carmen, the one who is left surviving there. And after Zim captures, well, okay, so basically there's a fight. Basically, most of his infantry dies there, but it doesn't matter because Johnny survives, and Zim captures the brain bug. I think that was completely off screen. You didn't expect him to be there because he wanted to be private. And Carl, uh, yeah, Carl Jenkins goes up to the captured brain bug, and he reads its mind, and he says, "It's afraid." Everyone cheers. It's the end, and it plays a military propaganda saying, "You got to join. We got to keep on fighting."
Yeah, we've made big gains. Look at all these gains we've made, and they show in that outro scene them doing tests on the brain bug, which made me queasy because not because anything was like like body horror like gross, but because it was like gross, like it was the most humanized bug, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I've talked about my distaste for the book that this is based on, and again, the movie adaptation is a direct rebuke of the ideals that it proposes, except for the racial equality stuff, which only good part of the book.
yeah.
um, which I hey Hollywood, if you're listening, you should do this for like Atlas Shrugged or like some other out there ideological book. That'd be something. Just keep
Yeah,
that in mind.
do an adaptation. I think the problem is I don't know how they tricked this guy into letting them do an adaptation of it. Is the thing.
Well, I think
Maybe
Robert
that's
Heinlein
maybe.
was dead.
Oh, what? Okay, I don't know how they tricked his estate then, or whatever.
Well, allegedly, because like this movie was a big budget movie. It was like 107 billion dollars. Uh, so essentially, the script originated as a something completely unrelated. It was called Bug Hunt at Outpost 7. It was a movie that was basically silly, big, jingoistic, xenophobic. Let's go out and kill the enemy movie, and then they settled on the idea of being insects, but they wanted to make a war movie and also a teenage romance movie. It didn't get picked up anywhere until someone at Warner Brothers brought up the idea. It's like, hey, how about we make a movie, um, something that we could combine it with an existing book or something. So they picked and settled on Starship Troopers. Um, which was already a little bit controversial, but not controversial enough not to be taken off the what is it, the military reading list. I forgot what it's.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was only
which is
recently that they took it off of that, like in the past couple of years, right?
2020 to be exact,
Yeah.
which is a little bit too late for that. Um, but yeah, eventually they retooled it. Paul Verhoeven was in charge of it, and he was famous in going, "Hey, I read the first two chapters. It's boring. I'm gonna make this movie anyways." Um, and essentially, the reason why this movie somehow this movie was able to sneak through the studio system was because like essentially I think the studio was going through so many like head changes, so no one was everyone the heads were the studio heads knew what the movie was about, but no one was able to complete the reading the script all the way through or really check on because so many people it was basically just a revolving door of people changing. So basically, he was able to sneak it past the studio system, and we got this movie, which bombed, but it gave us a cult classic.
It technically, I mean, it made its money back at the box office.
It made its production because for a
Right.
movie to be considered a success, it needs to make 1.5 times its budget, which
Right.
maybe it got it through.
Well, right, yeah. In this era with DVD and physical releases doing so well, probably
Yeah,
did eventually get 1.5 back.
yeah. Um, technically, yeah. Um, and it did spawn a little bit of a series sequels that probably were not good. Because it didn't have anyone involved. Well, it had the main actor involved, but it didn't have Paul Verhoeven's input. They probably did not even understand that it was a satire like everyone else did at the time. Question mark. But I'm assuming that it somehow had a cult following all the way through because I think this movie has been reevaluated, especially
Mm.
probably after jingoism that kind of rose in the early 2000s after the September 11th attacks, where everyone was like calling to go to war again, and people maybe pointing towards this movie as like, hey, let's try not to inundate people with propaganda like this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely been reevaluated in recent years, and I honestly the reason why I wanted to watch this month, which by the way I don't think we said what the month was.
We
It's
sometimes do.
technically Brave New World month, but this is kind of dystopian, so it's a bit of a stretch, but we got here. Anyways, the reason why I was so gung ho about watching this is because there just every like year or two, all of a sudden people online just start talking about it, like, and there's all these like arguments online where people are like, there are people who are taking it very seriously and are like, yeah, I hate bugs. The bugs are gross. They deserve to die. And then there's a whole bunch of other people who are like, no, no, you're missing the whole point. You're missing it all. And I guess to talk up, we should probably talk a little bit about the bugs because I mean, they don't have a lot to say, but they
Hmm.
are. I think they're a pretty big part in what makes this satirical. Um,
Hmm.
I noticed, and I'd like to probably at some point read up on this to see if anybody else noticed this. It definitely felt to me like 90% of the time or so, the humans shot first.
Yeah.
Like the humans, not only were they invading their planet, but they were also shooting first almost every
Hmm.
time before the bugs did anything.
Yes. Um,
Um, mhm.
there was some conspiracy about like how the meteor that killed everyone in Buenos Aires was somehow like a government thing. Like, if we're really getting into the conspiracy there, because you don't see bugs anywhere, and you're supposed to take it at face value. It's like, oh my god, the bugs killed everyone in Buenos Aires. But you don't see bugs anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't hear about a battle. And I think before that, it was like I think it was Carmen that was flying the ship, and they miscalculated something, and something may have caused the asteroid to hit Earth, and then they just blamed it on bugs. That's the conspiracy. That's a theory. That's a way that you can read the movie.
Yeah, I definitely think that the meteor is kind of a hand waved as like this was definitely the bugs. It was definitely, and I think like it doesn't really matter what really happened. It could have been a freak accident. What matters is that the government and the media used it as propaganda against the insects, the bugs.
Yes.
That's the big thing, that they used this tragedy, whether it was a false flag or an inside job or whatever. I don't think really matters so much as the fact that they definitely used the fact that it happened as like, we're gonna go to war now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Um.
justified because we're defending ourselves.
Yeah. They're kind of the instigator
Hmm.
of all this. Um.
I think also with the bugs, they they go back and forth on a lot of different aspects of them. How
Mhm.
strong they are. They're both like super strong, and we need to defend ourselves from them, but they're also weak idiots, who are all part of a collective whole, and
That
that's
is
where they
true.
get their strength from. Like, they're not individually strong, but we see in the movie obviously that they are very individually strong. They also are. They're also like, maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought I remembered them saying earlier in the movie that they're like pretty smart collectively or something, that they work together, they fit well into society and into their bug society and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
and then I don't know, the brain bug to me is kind of like, it feels like kind of a scapegoat almost. Like
Yeah.
it acts they act like it's like the source of a hive mind. And I mean, maybe it is, but it could just as well just be like a leader, you know?
Mhm. Um, yeah, I again, I think the film purposely obfuscates any information you can get about them, except
Yeah.
for some bits of humanity. I think it's supposed to be like kind of conflicting, like you're suggesting right here. Um, and again, there was only some bits of humanity that the movie shows. I think the most famous one is the close up of the eye that looks like it's scared before it gets kind of headshot by one of the careless soldiers. Um, and I think there's some other scenes like again, it's afraid. It's showing
Yeah,
that the
it's
bug has
afraid and
humanity.
everyone cheers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those dehumanizing effects.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the oh, it's afraid everyone cheers leads directly into the like ending propaganda where they're like, we're doing all these tests on the brain bug, and it's like they're like torturing it.
Yeah.
It literally like made me feel sick. Like, it's gross. To torture an intelligent creature on purpose. Like, it's I don't know, it's disgusting to me. Um, and it was so like joyful in like, oh, this is what's gonna help us win the war versus the bugs.
Yeah, it does play like a downer ending because, as we see with the main character John Enrico, he's lost everybody, and everyone that has been like really close to him, except for Carmen, who's off in space, and probably Carl or I don't remember Neil Patrick Harris's character,
Yeah.
um, who's probably killing a bunch of other people by having these poorly thought out plans. So, and you see him kind of devolve. At the beginning, he had this not bright idealism. He At the beginning, you see him questioning authority just a little bit. Questioning his teacher, going like, kind of not really being buying into the fascism that he's being given. But through the course of the movie, he just gets slowly worn down after tragedy, and now at the end of the movie, he kind of just like he's the leader of a squad, and he threatens anyone. It's like, if you don't fight, I'll kill you myself. If you don't see any compassion with them, he's just fully buys into it, kind of uh, like 1984 style. He just buys into it. He becomes a propagator of the propaganda. He's part of the machine now. It's played as a happy ending, but it's really kind of a downer ending. The more you
Hmm.
think about it, and everybody else is kind of just
I,
more in their roles.
I think the thing about it is, in the intro, because the intro and outro sequences are
Mhm.
similar, pretty similar.
Yeah.
I think in the intro you come into it and it's almost played for laughs,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, I'm doing my part, like that whole sequence.
Yeah.
It's like very up and happy and you're there's a reason why that specific line
Mhm.
has become so popular. And then you get to the end and you have all this information about what's actually going on
Mhm.
that you've kind of parsed in
Yeah.
the confusing bits and the propaganda throughout the movie. You have all this information about what's really going on, and even though I think it's played pretty similarly,
Yeah.
you have more information now about the
Yeah.
bugs and about the society and how everyone actually like is in
Mhm.
society. How everyone has to earn their citizenship by going to war.
Yeah.
You have all this new information, so it doesn't come off the same.
Yeah. And I think that Rico, he's kind of like, not, I wouldn't say he's the emotional center point, but I guess he is, because you do follow him from the beginning, where he's kind of a just a apathetic high schooler that kind of joins the military for his girlfriend. He goes into war just for the wrong reason, and then at the end, it's treated as heroic. Because again, he messes up so many times, and it's just I think it's the way that he just joins for no reason and doesn't really espouse any ideology. It's I guess the film is just saying that people like Rico kind of destroy themselves ideologically, just physically and emotionally for causes they don't even understand. I guess is what the film's trying to say. And like what you're saying right here at the beginning, where people it is kind of a critique of their fascist government in the famous shower scene. I think we talked about this before. It's
Yeah.
like everyone.
Well, I don't think we actually talked about it on the episode yet.
Yeah.
We just talked about it before we started recording.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, so basically, for all the faults that this government and military has, that they are in the shower together, and you would expect for them to be, doing typical frat boy behavior, talking about each other's genitals and laughing about it. Especially it being in a
Co-ed
gender
shower.
neutral, yeah, a
Yeah.
gender neutral shower. They're not. They're talking about why they're joining, and the way that they're talking about it is just kind of a at first it's kind of tongue in cheek, like they're getting to know each other. They're talking about, oh man, we're all doomed, haha. But then you start hearing about the reasons, especially the one that kind of made it a little bit sad was that the fact that, I think there's this one woman that was here because she was pregnant or she wanted to get pregnant and wanted to have a child.
It was that she wanted to have kids in the future, and only citizens could get the license to have kids, I believe, or it was so much easier for citizens to get the
Yeah, yeah,
license to
yeah.
have kids, something along those lines.
Which, yeah, that's totally normal. And other things, I think that was the one big thing that really stood out to me. It's like, wait, I mean, I kind of knew it was a fascist government, but I think that's the clue that really tunes me in into the fact that like, oh, this is kind of critiquing the government because they're talking about it like it's a matter of fact thing, um, but it's really not. And I want to also draw attention to the fact that I like to think that the bad acting, because maybe the acting here is not the best in film history. I like to think that was intentional, not
Ye-
because
Yeah, because it feels like a propaganda film overall. I think that
yeah,
that's kind of what people have said is that it's we're not just watching a film about this future society. We're watching the propaganda film that they're going to show to other people.
yeah. Which is why I was kind of confused at the beginning because I was like, wow, they're taking this high school romance thing very earnestly. Because it does take a while to get started, but like it doesn't do it in a tongue-in-cheek way. It's like it's playing it straight for now, which again, kind of weird that was doing that. Especially with all these actors, and you expect a movie like this high quality, big budget, $107 million, nothing to scoff at. Um, but it was just kind of bizarre that the fact that the acting was kind of eh.
Hmm.
But I think but as we go along, you kind of see how necessary the first act was for the second, third act to kind of be more cohesive, because the bad acting, again, in universe could be just considered just like propaganda film stuff. Um, and I think it's kind of like the crack in this little broken mirror, or like the clue that, hey, this is all supposed to be cheesy. I kind of do wish the movie kind of played into that a little bit more, but that's just me critiquing it from a filmmaking aspect. Um, it's supposed to play up the fact that these actors are just there for to look pretty, and that they're really looking into it being a high school drama, and it's supposed to ease you into the military propaganda,
Yeah.
because the romance quadrangle is consistent throughout, um, and the bugs are always the thing that always oppose it. It's not the government for some reason. It's always the bugs that get in the way, especially with Dizzy's brutal murder or death scene.
Yeah. Oh, and I think also the shower scene especially kind of shows that this is not just critical of fascism, although it is very critical of fascism, right? It's the
Hmm.
dehumanization of other groups of people so that you can send in like a military group to take
Yeah.
them out and take over and all that. Um, because it appears to me that the bugs are conscious in some
Yeah.
meaningful way, and they're not treated as such by this like fascist organization of humans. But nonetheless, like what I was trying to get to is that it doesn't just appear to be critical of just fascism, normal like full throated fascism. I think the shower scene especially shows that it's also just being critical of like the military in general
Hmm.
in the US especially, right? All these benefits that the military gives to people to um I wouldn't call it coerce, but push people towards joining the
Hmm.
military, not because they want to serve their country or because they want to actually fight for the cause that the military is currently fighting for, but because they want to um in real life America's case right now, go to college for free.
Hmm.
Or in the case of the movie, make it easier to have kids, be a citizen, be able to vote, so on.
Yeah.
All these benefits that these people are. That's why they're in the military. It's not because of the causes or even just rote patriotism. It's
Privileges.
the
Yeah.
privileges that they're given, right?
Yeah, really the rights, because like you should have a right to have a child.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I mean, in this society, they're
Okay.
framed as privileges.
Yeah. Um, and I it's been a while since I've read the book, but I think the book was kind of advocating for just like, yeah, this is how the government should be run. It's advocating for you essentially just sacrificing yourself, because if you misbehave, you get executed, and all these other fascist ideas. Um, Again, crazy, crazy book. Don't read it unless you're just morbidly curious about what a crazy person would write, because he really goes all out on that. Um, but we could talk about like how it does. At first, the more that I think about it, the more that I kind of appreciate the fact that there is a lot of emphasis on this romance, which is weird to me to say, because I'm usually not a fan of these high school love triangle, love quadrangle, love pentagonal stuff, but it's here. Um, and again, it is just like it does play too earnestly, but it is essential for this movie to kind of work as a propaganda film, a
Hmm.
propaganda but not a propaganda film, because the bugs get in the way of all the romances, and it has this very interesting angle with the high school teacher. I've almost said professor, but that's not because I'm in college right now, or was in college. Um, Lieutenant Razchak, who eventually joins the military. He seems very hardened, but he does show some humanity. He wants Rico to not give up a chance to be with Dizzy, and he allows them to copulate in the tent.
That's
And
the thing is, I think that's highly inappropriate, and I think that is so on purpose.
yeah,
The his actions there. Um, it feels like the language of the film is saying like, look how awesome this guy is. Like he
yeah,
knows, right?
He's allowing it to happen.
he's the teacher, right? He's teaching in a classroom.
Yeah,
He's doing his civic duty there, and then
yeah,
he's also going to war, and he's this great charismatic leader, and he's effective, and then also he lets his soldiers have sex on the job, and it's
yeah,
like highly inappropriate, but is also it's framed as cool, but it's highly inappropriate. Um, in fact, I think a
yeah,
lot of the things he says are gross and would be gross to us if we take them at face value. Like in the classroom scene, he says a line that's something along the lines of voting is power. Voting is
yeah.
strength.
Violence and violence is power.
Violence, yes, right.
Yeah, and I think the one important part about that entire conversation is like I think Carmen is the one that's like, why don't you ask Hiroshima or something like that? They mentioned Hiroshima somewhere, and then I think the teacher is like, well, we conquered them with violence, something along the lines of that,
Yeah,
and that made me wince a bit. I'm like, was that supposed to be a joke? I kind of nervous laughed at, but like I don't think I'm supposed to be laughing at that because I was supposed to be like, oh, gross.
yeah. I sent this in a message before, phrased differently from how I'm about to, but it's just the language of the film is that all of this is so cool, right? It's so
Yeah,
cool. They're shooting bugs. The action scenes are awesome. The CGI slash practical effects are very cool. There's lots of blood and shooting and gore and all that. And it's cool, right? And it's framed that these are just mindless entities to be shot and killed, which makes it not only cool but also fine to do, morally speaking.
hmm
But then, as you watch the movie, you find the bugs have kind of some kind of consciousness,
yeah,
which the movie tries it both tells you but also kind of reels it back and tries to not really let you know exactly what kind of intelligence or consciousness the bugs have.
yeah,
So you're both. I don't know. When I was watching, I was both thinking, "Oh man, this is so cool!" Like when one of the humans gets stabbed by a bug appendage, or when the human blows the bug's like head
hmm
off. Like, oh, it's sick, right? It's awesome. It's cool looking. But then I'm also thinking in my head, but like these are you know regular, they're conscious beings of some
yeah.
kind. They clearly have some kind of emotions. Oh, I remember what it was when I was talking about them showing the bugs as kind of smart. It's because the psychic people can influence animals super easily, but they can't do it to
Oh yeah.
humans, and they also
Oh
can't
damn.
influence bugs that well. They can read their emotions, but not they can't like order them around like he did to the animal in the first like 15 minutes or whatever.
That is actually a good point that I did not even think. Yeah,
Yeah.
good observation.
I forgot about it, but a good thing I remembered while we were sitting here. Yeah, that it's yeah. The language of the film is look how cool this is, but then the subtext is this is very bad. Like these are conscious beings that are being like exterminated by humanity.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I for some reason I was like kind of that didn't really occur to me. I was like, damn, I guess these bugs may not be as evolved. I was thinking the opposite way that they're too dumb. I fell for the propaganda. Look at me. Don't be like me, kids. I guess they're too advanced for anyone with psychic powers to be there, um, in their minds. Wow, that kind of really just changed everything that I thought about the movie. Because in the book, I Heinlein, the movie kind of downgrades the bugs a lot. Because in the book they had their own technology, they had their own like solar, not the, they had advanced technology to fight back.
Hmm.
And I think they're described about the same. They had their appendixes and ske- exoskeletons and all that stuff. Um, so in the book, they're kind of downgraded a bit. So maybe that kind of got lost in translation. But damn, that was a good observation. Also in the movie, I guess they didn't have them wear the exoskeleton because I think this was a bit of an influence on Iron Man. I guess they didn't want to see them make them seem too cool. They had jetpacks and stuff. That's another difference between the movie and the book. I think that's just to make it more equal. Maybe make the military less cool than they are supposed to be seen as. The
The
exoskeleton.
I was just trying to do some googling about the brain bug.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are saying that the brain bug has psychic powers similar to psychic humans,
I don't
which to
know.
me means that the bugs that are not brain, like they're part of the same species, right? The bugs who are
Mm-hmm.
not brain bugs probably do have some kind of
Mm-hmm.
human level consciousness that evolves into the brain bugs.
Interesting. Damn. I guess some people gotta watch this movie for a second time to really appreciate
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
listen, I liked the movie. I don't know if it's a multiple watch movie for me. It's good. I'm glad
Okay.
I've seen it, but
Yeah.
I
It.
don't know if it was that
Yeah.
good.
Again, the high school romance stuff was essential, but it was a bit too
Yeah,
ingrained in the movie for me to enjoy to watch it a second time.
yeah.
But I mean, I like the ideas I was going for, so I couldn't change a thing about it. Won't watch it again.
I think it's incredibly interesting, and it's also, if you pay attention and get it, I think it's highly effective satire. Um, but I also think because they either downplay too much or don't play enough things like up. Um, I think it's a lot easier to miss
Hmm.
if you're not, if you think about it at all, I think you'll get it. But I think if you, a lot of people, I hate to say it, a lot of people don't watch movies and think about them as they're watching them.
They're not like
And
us.
so I think it would be really easy if you didn't think about the movie as you were watching it to fall for the propaganda that it is,
Yeah.
and believe the bugs are these terrible creatures who need to be, exterminated or whatever. And I think that's why you have so many people like missing the point,
Yeah.
even now as they're watching it today.
Yeah. Again, and a lot of people were pissed at Paul Verhoeven for making this movie because a lot of people did miss the satire and say it was endorsing fascism, which okay, maybe I may not have gotten all the anti-fascism stuff because maybe it was a bit too subtle for me at times because aside from in the intertitles between with all the propaganda stuff, it was obviously tongue in cheek. I don't know. People were still really pissed, and Paul Verhoeven grew up in Nazi occupied Holland, Netherlands. Sorry, he grew up in the Netherlands, and he grew up right outside the Hague, and basically he just watched Nazi propaganda. That was his first. Those were his first films. So it probably won't be very likely that he would be endorsing jingoism or fascism or anything like that, because he eventually was able to watch, regular films that were not propaganda. So, and was able to make his own films and give us this. So that's neat. And RoboCop, which I have not seen. By the way, Pierce, you should totally watch Total Recall. Just saying, that movie's a banger.
I will. I'm sure. I've watched a lot of movies this year, so if that keeps up across years, I will eventually watch every movie. Just kidding, but
He'll be like me one day.
um,
But yeah, I
yeah.
think we
Do you have anything
covered
else to
all.
add? Or
I think we've covered all of the essential, the basics of this film. Um, you may give it a watch because of Helldivers 2 again. Maybe not. Who knows? I got the game recently. I haven't played much of it, but I plan on playing more of it.
Yeah, if you've been enjoying Helldivers 2, I definitely recommend checking this out. I also just recommend checking it out if you've ever seen some of the discourse on it online because I find the discourse really funny, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's also a little scary. People who are so vehemently like, "This isn't satire. The bugs are are bad, terrible guys. They're awful." Um, in fact, in doing the little bit of research to find like maybe one other thing to talk about, I came across a forum post where this guy is arguing that the the bugs are like that they should be exterminated, basically. Um,
Okay.
uh, so yeah, they do exist. These people. Um, yeah, it's definitely. I would say it's worth one watch. Um, if you love it, you can watch it some more. But it's definitely worth checking out.
It's interesting to talk about, at the
Yeah.
very least. Well, and that wraps that conversation.
All right. You can join us next week for a discussion on Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Been my favorite dystopia for like almost 8 years, 6 years, I
Wow.
think at this point. I read it sophomore year of high school and I loved it. Um, so you can join us for a discussion on that next
Yeah.
week. I think it's going to be really good. We all read the same book,
Yeah.
like
One
we
of the
do
rare cases
occasionally.
where we did that.
Yep.
And we might have a bunch of people on there.
Yeah,
I
it's
hope so. It's
gonna be a bunch
going to be
of
packed.
guests, I think. Um, so yeah, please join us next week for that. Um, please you follow us. You can find us on Twitter and TikTok at Not Just Any Pod. Assuming TikTok is not banned yet. Um,
And YouTube, if you
yeah,
wherever you're listening to this.
yes, please like us, follow us, subscribe, follow, like whatever it is on whatever platform. I speak English. Whatever it is on whatever platform, we really appreciate it. You can also find us now on YouTube, where we will hopefully this summer be posting some extra content. We shall see, aside just from our normal episodes.
We
Um,
say that all the time.
well,
I'm hopeful.
we're announcing that it's coming. It's just not here yet. But yeah, uh, please check all that out. I think that's it.
And as always, goodbye, Prometheus.